One of the things we kind of joke around about here when we're doing like actors interviews, we'll kind of kick it off and say like, what drew you to the project? It's the easiest way. And so I have to kind of put a twist on that right now. What drew you to the castle?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Midwest, and my family lives in a town that's about 40 minutes from where the castle is. But we grew up having no idea it was there. And then a couple years ago, my little sister heard about it through the grapevine, ended up going there, and she called me right away, and she just got super obsessed. And, it's only open a few weekends a year. It's only been a few years that it's been open, so it's actually a really limited amount of time that anyone's had access to it publicly. So my sister finally convinced me to go, and it was actually the weekend after I got married, so it was kind of like a romantic time, and I went with my husband, Richard Reed Perry, who actually ended up doing the music for this film. And then we've traveled a lot. We've been around the world. You step into this place, and it's unlike any other place I've been in the world. And just to know that here it is, tucked up on a hillside, it's like a real life kind of Edward Scissorhands situation. So I called Shannon like right as we left. She and I are best friends, and we've worked on projects for many years together. A lot dealing with love and obsession and things like that. And I just said, Shannon, like, I don't know how or what, but there's something here. We got to do something.
Yeah. So I've been making films for a number of years, and when Laurel told me, I didn't quite know what to make of it at first. What it was? But once we met Alan and I visited Haven Crest myself, I was like, okay, wow. But we knew we had to do something really special to make this stand out. A lot of the story had happened in the past, so yeah, it started from there. And this is a real family affair, best friends and sisters and family. So yeah, it was a great start.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you started to conceptualize this documentary? I think what's been really exciting coming here the past few years and just seeing in documentary space people continuing to kind of push boundaries. And as I think you said the same thing in your director's statement. So can you tell me a little bit about like what the spin you wanted to put on this story and why it felt ripe to kind of use some different aspects of documentary filmmaking here?
Yeah, this was the most creative doc I've ever done, for sure. We heard about this love story, this greatest love story that you'd never heard of, but it had happened in the past, a lot of it. So we started conceptualizing how can we do this differently, and ended up taking Alan through this fantasy musical process in the doc. And the idea was really to use some of these created worlds as memory prompts, almost as a new way of interviewing, thinking about how to take him on a journey back into his past, quite literally, through creating that in the world that we built around him. And they created a fantasy. As Adrienne said, reality is for those who lack imagination. And so that was the world that we wanted the viewer to have as well. Enter their fantasy world and not quite sure what's real and what's not real. And so it was really fun and playful. And as a director, definitely one of the most exciting, creatively liberating projects I've done.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about kind of the early conversations you had with Alan about doing this project and what it was like to get him to kind of start to open up a bit more as this process went on.
Yeah, so Laurel and I started talking to him through Zoom. It was actually COVID. Alan, when you meet him in the film, he is someone who is kind of life-changing. Everyone who's met him was like, wow, this guy. But it's his life story. So, and I've made docs for a long time, and I think just having that ability to like build trust with people is really important. He was going to talk about some really deep, heavy grief, and he'd lost the love of his life, right? So it's really quite sensitive. But we also really included him in thinking creatively about what we could do. And so he was a real collaborator and had a lot of ideas that we ended up putting in the film, like the dancing mascots, for example, that we had a lot of fun with him.
That's great. And Laurel, kind of on the musical side of this, what were you guys hoping to evoke with the musical elements in here as a musician yourself?
Yeah, so Richard Reed Perry did the score. I collaborated with him on some of the the bits that have lyrics and things, and also put a song in the center of the, in an afterlife kind of scene later on. But it's really hard to describe love, particularly in a documentary sense. And so it's A, the love that they had, and B, the atmosphere of being there. And so the music took that role. It needed to fill the space, kind of transport you and give you that the emotional sense that we needed to convey. And music is really important in this documentary. It's really interwoven inherently in how the story is told. Every part of where we're reenacting the love story, we used kind of like as if it's a musical theater reenactment of their love story as a device. And so it was very, we made a lot of specific decisions to, and they loved musicals. Adrienne saw the musical Hair in 1976 like 276 times or something. So we were like, we gotta go big the way that Adrienne would do it if she were telling her own story. So
Well, and because you're pushing boundaries with how you guys were looking to kind of weave in some of those musical elements and musical theater elements of it, what were the challenges in shooting something like that for a doc? 'Cause obviously you have a career of putting some amazing documentaries together on much different subject matter. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it was a big production, but we had just such a beautiful crew. Even Richard Reed Perry was on set doing the music live, and we really wrote a lot. I mean, people think documentaries aren't written, but we really wrote a lot. So we were really prepared, and the atmosphere Adrienne and Alan created is full of so much joy and love, and our crew felt that joy and love. And so, that really made it a really wonderful process to take part in. Of course, it was really challenging just to bring such a big set to life on a tiny little budget. So some of our challenges were definitely just trying to make a fantasy happen with a handmade style, just like they did, a castle of dreams that was made on a shoestring.
I'm curious, as a documentarian, how do you balance trying to get your subject to open up while still being respectful of something like the grieving process? Because there's a very, very, very delicate balance to something like that.
Yeah, I think documentary filmmaking, all filmmaking really, is about building relationships with people and connecting with them on that human level. I'd lost my father as well in the process of early creating this film to COVID, actually. And Alan and I think, really connected just at a human level on that loss, and his grief and mine really kind of resonated. And I think that really opened up a space for us to connect that was really special. I think as a doc maker, I'm always thinking about how do I create space for people to fully experience their emotions. It's part of my job. It's literally what I do. And also with a mind to what are we going to do next. But this was really special because many times in the film, like, Alan is crying and I am too. On the other side of the camera, we're together in that, and it was really special for that.
Were there other kind of recent documentaries that you felt have experimented with form that really inspired the both of you as you were thinking through how you wanted to shoot this film?
Yeah, 306 Hollywood was we were a big fan of that film, which is amazing. We loved No Ordinary Man, another film that a lot of these contemporary films that have been pushing boundaries and playing with form in really radical ways. I was also really influenced by old 90s Iranian New Wave films from Mahmoud Baf and Kiarostami, and those were really big influences, and we got the crew to watch some of those films, as well as strange, obscure 60s films like last year at Marienbad by Alan Reneas. We actually tried to mimic how they shot that chateau in that film. We shot the house in this film in that way too. So we had a kind of whole range of documentary and fiction references that we were using.
Was there a particular response to the screenings from people watching it that really impacted the two of you?
Oh man, yesterday we had our screening, and people are just streaming tears. But also laughing, loud belly laughs. And, as a filmmaker, that was it with this. I really wanted people to connect to the emotional. Alan is a guy who wears his emotions on his sleeve, and we wanted to make a film that made you be able to experience your emotions. Mm-hmm. And that was just beautiful to be in the audience with people really going through. Yesterday, a woman came up and said, I lost my father recently, and I was so close to him, and just gave us all hugs and was just completely, moved and transported. And
I think that's, in the process of making this film, when Shannon and Sophie Farkas-Bola, the editor, when they found the heart of it, it was when they had the intention of anyone who's experienced grief feeling seen. And so I think that's at the heart of this film, and certainly we felt that at the screening yesterday in particular. Yeah.
Obviously, this movie, just right from the jump, is just so visually striking. I'm curious if going through this process of making this film, in what ways has that inspired you? And like as you look to see like what's your next documentary project or music project, where do you guys want to go next? Has it sparked any ideas?
Yeah, honestly, it's a career-defining, career-changing film for me, partially because meeting Alan made me realize I'm dreaming too small. Like, dream bigger. That is their whole vibe, is like, you're dreaming too small, go big, and why not like go to the sky? And yeah, my next project is also another hybrid that's bringing real people into conversation with stories from the past. And yeah, I'm really continuing to explore that kind of hybrid feeling in my next films. Definitely will be it's on the roster.
Yeah, and same for me. Exploring more music and film, writing for film, incorporating music, and just exciting. It's a really it's been such a great life affirming project.
And wait till you hear Laurel's song, Death Defying Love, in the film is so mind-blowing. And she also has like an incredible song that was in Iron Claw as well. So I just going to give her a shout out, because I can't wait for the album of your music that is all the songs that are in films, because it's just off the hook.
I was sobbing like really ugly to Iron Claw while your music was playing. So thank you for that.
When we were talking about it last night, I was like, oh God, don't get me started. I'm in a party.
And I think Death Defying Love is equal. Like the song that she did in this film as well is also just a total tearjerker, and just like brings that power of music into a conversation with the visual, which is just, I think, really, really special. Mm-hmm.
Congrats on the film. This is the end of the interview.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah.